Keith and Nicole's shocking $325 million split that rocked the movie and music worlds. Now we're tracing the clue. Nicole Kidman's divorce filing from Keith Urban just exposed the real reason their 19-year marriage ended. And she didn't have to say a single word. Now reports Nicole Kidman just filed for divorce, even though they were told she wanted to save her marriage. On September 30, 2025, Nicole filed for divorce in Nashville, citing the standard legal phrase irreconcilable differences. "We have such a strong, deep bond and love. That was then, this is now. I don't think anyone's the perfect anything. I'm not a," but buried in the court documents is a number that tells the real story. 306 versus 59. That's the custody split. Nicole gets their daughters for 306 days per year. Keith gets 59 days. That's 83% of the time. With mom, 17% with dad. And those numbers reveal what polite legal language won't say. This marriage didn't just end because two people drifted apart. The documents don't just reveal a divorce. They reveal what happens when a woman finally says, "I can't pretend anymore. I can't keep raising our children alone while you chase your career. I can't perform this perfect marriage one more day." Nicole hasn't given interviews. Keith hasn't made statements. But when celebrities stay silent, the paperwork talks for them. And what these documents reveal is worse than any scandal, any affair, any dramatic blow-up could ever be. It's the slow death of a marriage where one parent was there and one parent wasn't. The most revealing thing about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's divorce isn't what they've said, it's what they haven't said. Since the September 30 filing became public, neither has spoken. No tearful interviews explaining what went wrong. No social media posts about personal growth or moving forward. No carefully worded statements from publicists about mutual respect and remaining friends. Just silence. And that silence forces us to look at the only source of truth available: the legal documents filed in Davidson County Circuit Court in Nashville, Tennessee. These aren't gossip magazine speculations or anonymous insider claims. These are sworn legal statements signed by both parties outlining exactly how their lives will be divided now that their marriage is over. And when you read through the custody arrangements, the financial terms, and the timelines buried in legal language, a story emerges that's far more damning than any public confession could be. Because the documents don't just explain why Nicole left Keith, they expose a marriage that was already over, long before either of them was willing to admit it publicly. And they reveal a pattern of choices that made the ending inevitable. When celebrities won't talk, we have to let the paperwork speak for them. And what it's saying is brutal. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have separated. A T quote, "She's devastated and didn't want this to happen. Incredible mom. Loving. Maternal. You know, my wife Nicole Mary is here tonight. I love your baby girl." The shocker comes just 4 months after this love fest at the ACMS. Who's having more fun today? You or her? We both are equal. The custody arrangement in Nicole and Keith's divorce filing doesn't just outline a schedule. It exposes fundamental problems in their marriage that existed long before the filing. The permanent parenting plan states that Nicole Kidman will have primary residential custody of their daughters, Sunday Rose, 17, and Faith Margaret, 14. Nicole will have the children for 306 days per year. Keith will have them for 59 days per year. Let's be clear about what that means. Keith Urban, the father of these two teenagers, will see his daughters for roughly 2 months out of every 12. Nicole will have them for more than 10 months. That's not shared custody. That's not co-parenting. That's one parent raising the children while the other parent visits occasionally. The plan designates Nicole as the primary residential parent, meaning the girls will continue living in Nashville with her while Keith maintains his own residence. Both parents will make major decisions about education and healthcare together, but the day-to-day reality is that Keith will be largely absent from his daughters' lives. This isn't the arrangement of a divorce where both parents are equally invested and equally present. This is the arrangement when one parent has been the primary caregiver throughout the marriage and the other parent's lifestyle makes equal custody impossible. But here's what makes this even more revealing. The documents don't cite Keith's touring schedule as the reason for the lopsided custody. They don't mention substance abuse concerns. They don't specify any particular reason why Keith would only get 59 days per year with his own children. The documents simply present the arrangement as agreed upon by both parties, which means Keith either couldn't argue for more custody because his lifestyle doesn't support it or he didn't want more custody because it would interfere with his career. Either way, the math tells the real story. A father who's truly present, truly engaged, truly prioritizing his children doesn't agree to see them only 17% of the time. That custody split isn't the result of a recent divorce negotiation. It's the formalization of a pattern that's been in place for years. Keith Urban's career has been remarkably successful throughout 2024. In 2025, his High and Alive World Tour has taken him across North America for months at a time, promoting his 2024 album High. He's performed dozens of shows, earned millions, and maintained his status as one of country music's biggest stars. But that success came with a cost that the custody arrangement now makes mathematically visible. A touring musician of Keith's caliber is typically on the road 200 or more days per year. That's 2/3 of the year away from home, away from Nashville, away from his daughters, away from his wife. Compare that to Nicole's career strategy. While she's one of the highest-paid actresses in the world, Forbes named her the highest-paid actress in 2024. Her work is project-based rather than continuous touring. She films for months at a time, then comes home. In 2025, she worked on the Practical Magic sequel with Sandra Bullock, but Nashville remained her base. The geographic and temporal reality is this. Nicole was home. Keith was not. And that pattern didn't start with the divorce. It defined their marriage. Now look at the timeline buried in the court documents. The separation is officially listed as September 30, 2025, the same day Nicole filed, but Keith Urban signed the permanent parenting plan on August 13, 2025. That's nearly 2 months earlier. What does it mean that Keith signed away primary custody 2 months before the divorce became public? It means he looked at the proposed arrangement, 306 days with mom, 59 days with dad, and agreed to it. He didn't fight for more time. He didn't negotiate a better split. He signed. And then there's the detail that reveals his priorities most clearly. The documents state that Keith has prepaid all child support obligations owed to mother. He made a lump sum payment covering whatever child support would have been calculated under Tennessee law, eliminating the need for ongoing monthly payments. That's not standard. Most divorced parents pay monthly child support based on income and custody time. But Keith prepaid everything. Why? Because his touring schedule is unpredictable. Because he didn't want the administrative burden of monthly payments while he's on the road. Because it was easier to write one big check and be done with the financial obligation the same way the custody arrangement allowed him to maintain his touring lifestyle without the burden of primary parenting. The documents don't say Keith chose his career over his family, but the numbers do. There's a shadow hanging over this divorce that nobody's mentioning publicly, but that the custody arrangement makes impossible to ignore. Keith Urban's addiction history. In 2006, just 4 months into their marriage, Nicole staged an intervention when Keith's alcohol struggles reached crisis levels. He entered rehab for 3 months at Nicole's 2024 AFI ceremony. 17 months before filing for divorce, Keith gave an emotional tribute. Nicole, my wife Nicole Mary is here tonight. I love you, baby girl. 4 months into our marriage, my addictions that I had done really nothing about blew our marriage, and I went into the Betty Ford Center. Nick pushed through every negative voice, I'm sure even some of her own, and she chose love. If you want to see what love in action really looks like, give that a whirl. Nick pushed through every negative voice, I'm sure even some of her own, and she chose love. Now look at the custody split. 306 days with Nicole, 59 days with Keith. The documents don't mention substance abuse concerns or cite specific reasons for this lopsided arrangement. But when a mother seeks primary custody to the extent of 83% of the year and a father agrees without contest, it raises questions. Is it purely touring schedules, or did Nicole have concerns about extended time with Keith? The documents don't say. But custody arrangements this extreme typically happen for specific reasons. Work schedules that make equal custody impossible or concerns about stability and appropriate care. The numbers suggest Nicole wasn't comfortable leaving their daughters with Keith for extended periods. And Keith signing that arrangement without fighting for more time suggests he knew he couldn't argue otherwise. The financial terms of Nicole and Keith's divorce are remarkably clean for a couple who was married for 19 years. And that cleanliness reveals something important about the foundation of their relationship from the very beginning. Both Nicole and Keith have waived spousal support. Neither will receive ongoing financial payments from the other. Each will keep all assets held in their own name, including copyrights and royalties from their respective work. Nicole keeps her film and TV earnings. Keith keeps his music catalog and touring revenue. This level of financial separation after nearly 2 decades of marriage only happens one way, with a prenuptial agreement that was ironclad from day one. Think about what that means. When Nicole married Keith in 2006, she was already one of Hollywood's biggest stars with an Oscar and massive earning power. She had already been through a divorce with Tom Cruise that was public and painful. So when she married Keith, she protected herself. And Keith agreed to terms that would keep their finances separate no matter how long the marriage lasted or how much money either of them made during it. That's not necessarily cynical. It's practical. But it also reveals something about the foundation of their relationship. They built their marriage knowing it might not last. They created legal structures from the beginning that would make separation clean and simple if it ever came to that. And now, 19 years later, those structures are doing exactly what they were designed to do, allowing both parties to walk away from the marriage without the financial entanglement and litigation that destroys most celebrity divorces. The prenup that protected them from each other is now facilitating their divorce with remarkable efficiency. And that efficiency suggests this ending wasn't a surprise to either of them. It was always a possibility they'd planned for from the start. The most disturbing aspect of Nicole and Keith's divorce isn't that it happened. It's how long they performed the marriage while privately dismantling it. Let's trace the timeline that the documents and public record reveal. June 26, 2025. Nicole and Keith celebrate their 19th wedding anniversary. Keith posts a black and white photo of them embracing with the caption, "Happy anniversary, baby." Nicole shares similar sentiments on her account. Now comes the shocking news that Keith Urban moved out of their home at the beginning of this summer and has his own place in Nashville. There's also a report that he's seeing another woman. What we've learned is that she really has been fighting hard over the past 3 months or so to save their marriage. This isn't what she wanted. So even with what I've got now, I've been able to juggle things to accommodate my family. To the world, they appear happily married. August 1, 2025. Keith Urban signs the permanent parenting plan. This is documented in the court filing. He agrees to see his daughters 59 days per year. He agrees to Nicole being primary residential parent. He agrees to prepay all child support obligations. The divorce is planned and negotiated at this point, just 5 weeks after the anniversary posts. September 29, 2025. News breaks that Nicole and Keith are separating. TMZ reports the split. The public is shocked because as recently as May, they'd walked the ACM Awards red carpet together looking devoted. September 30, 2025, Nicole officially files for divorce in Nashville, listing this date as the separation date. But Keith signed off on everything 2 months earlier. This timeline reveals a marriage that was over long before either party was willing to admit it publicly. They celebrated an anniversary they knew was likely their last. They maintained public appearances while privately negotiating the terms of their split. They performed devotion while planning their exit. And here's where Nicole's own words become prophetic. At the premiere of her Netflix series, The Perfect Couple in 2024, she was asked about the title and whether it applied to her and Keith. Her response, "You're heading for trouble if you consider yourselves the perfect couple. I'm not a believer in perfect." Was she already thinking about divorce when she said that? Or was she simply being honest about the cracks in their foundation that nobody else could see? In December 2024, she told The Hollywood Reporter about their family routine. "We have breakfast together every morning and we have dinner. How do we do it? I'm kind of not sure." That uncertainty, "I'm kind of not sure" now sounds like someone admitting they don't actually know how to make their marriage work anymore. Or someone who's already decided it won't work and is just going through the motions. The performance continued through May 2025 when they walked the ACM Awards red carpet, through June when they posted anniversary tributes, right up until the moment the news broke and they could stop pretending. While neither Nicole nor Keith has spoken publicly, sources close to the couple have given reporters glimpses into what was happening behind the scenes. One report stated that the marriage breakdown hasn't been a secret among their inner circle. That's a carefully worded statement that reveals their friends and family saw this coming long before the public did. The surprise wasn't that they were divorcing. It was that they'd maintain the facade as long as they did. Other sources point to the fundamental incompatibility of their careers. Keith's touring schedule meant he was away more than he was home. Nicole's film schedule was demanding, but allowed her to return to Nashville between projects. That geographic separation created emotional distance that became impossible to bridge. The mystery woman. Rumors that surfaced immediately after the divorce announcement centered on Natalie Stovall, Keith's touring guitarist. But Stovall is married and has been for 17 years. The speculation says less about Keith potentially having an affair and more about the core problem. He was spending more time with his touring musicians than with his wife and daughters. When your husband is on the road 200+ days per year. When you're raising 2 teenagers primarily alone. When the person you married shows up for big events but misses the daily reality of family life, that's not a marriage. That's a part-time arrangement where one person is doing all the work. The real reason for the divorce, according to those close to the couple, isn't dramatic or scandalous. It's simple and sad. Keith chose his career, Nicole chose their daughters, and eventually those choices made staying married impossible. Nicole Kidman didn't reveal the real reason for her divorce from Keith Urban. She hasn't given interviews, hasn't posted explanations, hasn't tried to control the narrative beyond what's required by law. But the court filing she submitted on September 30, 2025, reveals everything that matters. The custody split, 306 days with Nicole, 59 days with Keith, is the mathematical proof of incompatible priorities. It's the formalization of a pattern where one parent was present and one parent wasn't. It's the court system acknowledging what their marriage couldn't survive. Keith's career came first, and Nicole was left raising their daughters essentially alone. The prenup that keeps their finances cleanly separated reveals they built protections into their marriage from the beginning, planning for the possibility that it might not last. The timeline that shows Keith signing the parenting plan 2 months before filing reveals they were performing their marriage for public consumption while privately agreeing to end it. And the irreconcilable differences cited in the filing are code for the simplest truth. You can't maintain intimacy and partnership when you're never in the same place. When one person is always leaving. When career ambitions matter more than daily presence. Nicole didn't have to say any of this. The numbers say it for her. 306 versus 59. That's not just a custody arrangement. That's the story of a marriage where one person showed up and one person didn't. That's what happens when a woman finally stops pretending. When she stops performing the perfect marriage. When she stops making excuses for absence. When she finally says enough, the documents don't lie. They expose the real reason better than any interview ever could. So, what do you think the custody split really means? Was it just about touring schedules? Or is there something darker the documents aren't saying? Drop your thoughts below, because the numbers tell a story. Nicole and Keith never had to speak out loud.